You're listening to the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WYPC.
WCYTV
Here on the Daily 60.
Good evening. This was from earlier today. Another peace deal brokered between the President of the United States and two formerly fighting factions. In case you are keeping track, earlier this afternoon, I had the pleasure of sitting down and recording kind of the trailer for the show, and I kept getting the two countries that had just brokered another peace deal at the White House, with Trump sitting between the two of them. I kept mixing up the countries. So I did a take where I said Cambodia and Thailand. I think I got Rwanda thrown in there at one point. The countries that have either brokered a peace deal or a ceasefire under the leadership of President Trump so far include Thailand and Cambodia, Israel and Iran, Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of the Congo, India and Pakistan, Serbia and Kosovo, Egypt and Ethiopia, and now, after 35 years of fighting, Armenia and Azerbaijan. And by the way, these two world leaders are not just at the White House looking glum, again, looking like, all right, go ahead and shake hands, and the very grumpy faces. They are thrilled because the United States has used, yet again, economic trade leverage to broker a major peace deal that is going to be not only huge for their countries, for their economies, for their peoples, it's going to solidify measures to keep that peace stable. And what they end up suggesting, from their own unprompted communication, and you can tell because nobody from the media was leaking this ahead of time, that they themselves, Armenia and Azerbaijan, are going to join with India and Pakistan to almost try to force a Nobel Peace Prize for President Trump. Check it out.
From the leaders of the countries which were at war for more than 3 decades, having this historic signature here, it really means a lot. This is tangible result of President Trump's leadership, and no one could have achieved that. There have been many presidents here since beginning of 90s, and the so-called Minsk process, which, by the way, today we put an end to with my Armenian colleague, started in 1992. So negotiation under the auspices of OSCE continued for more than 3 decades without any result. So who, if not President Trump, deserves the Nobel Peace Prize? I don't want to go into the history of some very strange decisions of the Nobel Peace Committee to award the prize for someone who didn't do anything at all.
Obama.
But President Trump in 6 months did miracle. So I think that my Armenian colleague will support it, and judging by the reaction of the audience, I think as soon as we come back, we will agree to issue a joint letter. And hopefully, and I also join when President is awarded, we hope that he will invite us to the ceremony.
You certainly will be. Thank you very much.
Do we have draft to sign now?
Well, wow. Really, what else is there to say? In 200 days, the President of the United States has brokered trade deals. And again, you can futz around on the trade deals. Oh, well, he also threw aside some trade stuff. Okay. Even if you put those aside, ceasefires and peace negotiations using the economic leverage of the United States, not just saying, all right, we're going to say that you're wonderful and we're going to give you everything that you want and we're going to ignore all the atrocities your country's ever committed. And also we're going to send a bunch of foreign aid your way. Instead, what does Trump do? You want to trade with us or you want to be broke? Your choice. And the world leaders agree to go along with those terms. That is actual economic development that does not require some country suckling at the teat of the American taxpayer for the next century. It is unprecedented to the nth degree. We've never seen anything like this. We've never have. I don't care if you like Trump. I don't care if you hate Trump. I don't care if you voted for him or cackles. I don't care if you're one of those weird elbow lickers who voted for whoever the libertarians shoved forward, who thinks that smoking pot is a personality. I don't know what you vote for. I don't care. When it comes to genuine negotiation, the art of the deal, as it were, these are long-lasting, far beyond this administration impacts of the Trump administration. And if nothing else, that alone is Nobel Peace Prize worthy, objectively, apolitically. That is astounding. And part of the reason that that is possible at all has to do with Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio, who, when he was nominated by President Trump to serve as the Secretary of State, I heard a lot of grumbling and boo-hooing and because, oh man, he's just this squish, this rhino. He's not going to do anything like that. And I was thrilled to point out at the time, because you guys know how much I enjoy being right, that Marco Rubio had been one of the most passionate individuals when it came to scalping the deep state, scouring the mold and the filth that has served not the American people as civil servants, but themselves for the last century. And these individuals that Marco Rubio fired could no longer undermine the president's negotiations. You really need to understand how under the first Trump administration, and then before that, the Obama administration, and then once again during the Biden administration, these things worked. Some theater major in the middle of the State Department that was working there for some reason, recommended by some left-wing NGO, would get information that the United States was trying to broker some kind of deal. And this was the proposed red line. This is the kind of the deal they wanted to see happen. This is why they were brokering the deal. This is what they were getting or seeking in concessions or giving in concessions. And then they would leak that to the New York Times or to Axios or to the Washington Post, and it would ruin the deal. This happened every single week. There was an individual in the State Department, in the Biden administration, who was literally a member of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. She was feeding information constantly to Iran from the United States. And Marco Rubio came in and he scowled over the entire institution as only an angry Hispanic man can do. And gutted the entire workforce so that people were, I'm leaving the State Department. They're doing like slow claps for them as they're heading to the unemployment line. And for the first time, literally in decades, we actually have a Secretary of State who is benefiting the American people on foreign policy decisions and is not afraid to call out individuals, whether they be allies or enemies or neither, for ruining things. For example, Secretary Rubio pointed out that the reason that Hamas has pulled out of every single talk that President Trump was moving forward in to end the war, get the hostages released, is because of France. Here's the Secretary of State.
Yes, George.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Let me get the right clip up here. The audacity of a Secretary of State to just look at the camera and say,
Well, if you notice that the talks with Hamas fell apart on the day Macron made the unilateral decision that he's going to recognize a Palestinian state. And then you have other people come forward, other countries say, well, if there's not a ceasefire by September, we're going to recognize a Palestinian state. Well, if I'm Hamas, I basically conclude, let's not do a ceasefire because we can be rewarded and we can claim it as a victory. So those messages, while largely symbolic in their minds, actually have made it harder to get peace and harder to achieve a deal with Hamas. They feel emboldened.
By the way, if President Trump wants to enact a foreign policy decision of bombing France, you're never going to see me cry over a Muslim country getting flattened for really stupid decisions. So, just in case we're asserting things. By the way, speaking of that, I don't have this in the show notes, but it is worth mentioning. According to the Daily Wire, President Trump has now greenlit U.S. military intervention in tackling the Mexican and Central American drug cartels directly. Good, correct, absolutely 100% a good thing. The President of the United States authorizing parts of the military. This is something that DeSantis made an early part of his campaign. And it is incredibly, incredibly important that we recognize that the Estados Unidos de Mexico, the Mexican government, is fallen. It is not controlled by Claudia Sheinbaum. It is controlled by the members of the legislature, which are completely bought out by the Sinaloa cartel. The Sinaloa cartel governs the state of Mexico. It is a failed state. The Mexican drug cartels traffic children and women in brutal, brutal fashion, as if there were a soft, comfortable way to human traffic. They do kick it up a notch, though, compared to your average cartel. And if the President of the United States wants to authorize drone strikes in Mexico, good. That is a good thing. You don't have to swing down there and do any nation building. No. Save that for Nikki Haley and George Bush feel-good hugging session. This is not what the policy of the United States should be. Flipping off the rest of the world and saying Americans should be first, and our allies, we will make sure are happy in the meantime, unless they disappoint us, as the president has no trouble saying. that should in fact be the policy, and that's a very good move. We got to send the radio crew over to the commercial. We're going to talk about Pam Bondi over on the live stream. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. Now, Attorney General Pam Bondi, as of today, approved a special prosecutor to investigate both California Senator Adam Schiff and New York Attorney General Letitia James for over a dozen counts of mortgage fraud. So, before we get into the details, mortgage fraud, what am I talking about? These two individuals, who you may notice, Senator Schiff being from California and Letitia James being the Attorney General of New York, you would believe that they would own homes in California and New York, respectively. Kind of amazing. Tony Kinnett, I do have the option to run for the seat in the House of Representatives for Indiana's 6th Congressional, because I live here. Now, am I going to run for that seat? Absolutely not. But it would be required for me to live here in this district. According to financial documents, though, I don't know if you guys know this about New York and California, but their taxes are kind of high. Their interest rates are really high. Things kind of suck in those places. That's why everybody's leaving. So according to documents, you saw Schiff and Letitia James trying to file mortgages based on addresses in places like Virginia, where the interest rates and the taxes are much lower. Rather interesting, wouldn't you say? And again, as the Department of Justice has gone through this meticulously, there's been a lot of complaints. Well, I'm not going to say anything until there are arrests. I hear you. I do. I understand the frustration. But allow me to remind you of a classic truism. If it is worth doing, it is worth doing well. If you rush in, like they did with Sean Diddy Combs, and you charge him with RICO and a bunch of other slapped on Waffle House in the middle of rush hour style charges, just throwing them on as quick as you can, don't be surprised when poor planning results in poor results. It's just a fact of life that you do indeed sow what you reap, or you reap what you sow. You know, in this particular instance, it is more important to the American people that individuals who have committed crimes, the federal government goes through the full process of investigation and the grand jury, as we are currently seeing regarding the Obamagate scandals, to go through it properly, even if it takes a little bit longer, than just going out and perhaps saying, hey, we've got the Epstein files, here you go, and then it turns out to be a big nothing burger. Going through it slowly, getting it done correctly, that's going to be a lot better. Now, this was first on Fox News. It was Ed Martin, oh boy, who is going to be this special prosecutor. Ed Martin has got an axe to grind here, and I do believe he's going for blood. So of all the individuals they could have picked in this particular instance, solid choice. Speaking of solid choices here, the appeals court has struck down a very strange contempt ruling by Judge James Boasberg in Washington, D.C. So Boasberg, remember the Obama appointee that said Trump can't use the Alien Enemies Act to deport illegal immigrants who are members of places like MS-13 and Venezuelan gangs and the Sinaloa cartel and Hamas. You can't do that. You can't just say they're alien enemies because they're alien enemies. He filed a very weird contempt charge. Therefore, according to Margot Cleveland, again, one of the most phenomenal legal analysts and correspondents over at The Federalist, she pointed out on April 8th that his trying to file a contempt was only going to shred his credibility. And now we have a ruling from the appeals court. It was a narrow vote, a little more narrow than probably should be comfortable. Boasberg's order holding the Trump administration in criminal contempt with itself, I guess, for deporting illegals using the Illegal Alien Enemies Act, yeah, that's thrown out the window. Because Boasberg does not, in fact, have the constitutional authority to just make stuff up whenever he wants. Well, again, what a surprise. What a concept. Incredible. We'll be back in just a second. We got to bring the radio crew in. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. Don't go anywhere.
It's the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated first on 93 WIBC. Believe it or not, I do not try to use kind of like specialized chyrons, lower thirds at the bottom of the screen every single evening that are the same. Normally we rotate out based on kind of special instances, the title of the segment, things like that. But Democrats drifting further into chaos, we really can't seem to pull it out of the lineup because it just keeps getting worse. It shouldn't be getting worse. It shouldn't. The Democrats really should be rallying at this point, starting to generate a little bit of momentum, some combined anger that really works, that isn't humiliating, and they really just can't do it. So Governor Kathy Hochul of New York decided to get in front of the country and suggest yesterday evening that Democrats always follow the rules and Republicans don't. Of course, she's referencing the Texas redistricting effort, again, which creates more minority majority districts than it left. The left should really be rather in favor of this. But of course, Kathy Hochul and the Democrats, they're very mad. And so she goes out trying to tell everyone that the Democrats aren't corrupt. In fact, they're just wonderful, sweet children.
This is how they're going to play the game. We're going to fight fire with fire. I didn't want to take on this fight. I've always followed the rules. Democrats always follow the rules. But when they're willing to do this to subvert our democracy, shame on us if we don't stand.
Yeah, they always follow the rules. Man, it sure would be a shame. Oh, man, according to Greg Price, Kathy Hochul literally just led a mid-decade redistricting effort last year that gerrymandered away 3 Republican districts to erase the gains that Republicans made in her state in the 2022 midterms. It's like opening your mouth is a really bad decision, and yet they continue to do so without any regard for the consequences. Senator Alex Padilla, the other senator from California, he's still hitting the illegal immigration thing. Ever since he tried to rush Kristi Noem and got a fantastic taste of industrial carpet in the press briefing room, he's been trying to claim that this is all just about trying to keep brown people from participating in slave labor, which, slave labor is bad, but here he goes defending it.
The vast majority of people being arrested, being detained, being deported are the same people that so many families trust to care for our children.
Trust to care for our children? Wait a minute. Hold on a second here. Is he suggesting that we all have Latina maids? That we all are just, all of us all out here, again, me in Midwest, just I go out, we have a maid for our kids and a nursemaid and a housemaid. And wait a minute, is he talking about Consuela from Family Guy? No more lemon pledge. What in the world, dude?
Are you telling me you don't get your babysitting service from MS-13?
Yeah, well, we all know Kilmar Abrego Garcia was such a family man, endangering the children in the backseat of the car flying down Maryland roads at 1:30. So, and that's 130 miles per hour, not the time of day. He was usually asleep during that time of day. Let's hear what other jobs he thinks that Hispanic individuals and those being deported, according to him, what other jobs are they capable of?
Trust to care for aging parents.
Nursing home workers, okay. Again, all right.
They're the people who are preparing and serving meals in restaurants that are...
Preparing and serving meals in restaurants. Okay. Little bit awkward way to say that. You could have just said chefs and cooks. But I guess that having as he would call them, having the brown people be the cook is a little too much like
phrasing.
Mammy stuff in there. Yeah, phrasing, exactly.
Picking the fruit and vegetables and packaging the
there
meat
we
and
go.
Oh, they're picking the crops. Who's going to pick the cotton, producer Nick, if we don't have the illegal immigrants do it so that their so that the heads of these farming cooperatives don't have to pay taxes?
factories that we depend on to put food on the table at home.
Oh, I love this idea that the only way that we get food to the table is through illegal immigrants. The only way, all throughout the country, we would all cease to exist if there was not as from his own words, a black or brown person picking the crops at slave labor wages. You guys realize that according to the actual statistics from the Agricultural Department, the USDA, During the Biden administration, less than 1% of American food is said to come from hand-picked sources. The United States has a considerable food surplus. It's more than just relying on 1%. And even if that were true, I'm sorry, the idea that we need slave labor to survive, it was really bad in 1860, and it's really bad now. So Jamie Raskin, who is a lot shorter than I expected, again, no offense to our short kings out there, Jamie Raskin just looks really, really short in this interview. He's decided that it's time to go back to an old fan favorite. He's tired of yelling about Quilmo Abrego Garcia. Instead, Jamie Raskin out here now, he's ready to dig into something far more important, trying to bring up the suckers and losers argument again.
They're trying to completely rewrite the history of January 6th, rewrite the history of the 2020 election, rewrite the history of the Civil War. You know, there are very fine people on both sides when there's an anti-Semitic riot in Charlottesville.
That's been debunked, of course. The fine people on both sides, even Snopes and PolitiFact, have had to go back and say, we were wrong about that report. But, you know, Raskin just uses it as a punchline.
It is the progressives who are standing up for history, who are standing up for facts, who are standing up for the truth.
Okay, good luck. So going out, bring out the very fine people, the Trump doesn't like veteran, thinks they're suckers and losers kind of a thing. You know, yesterday, Trump enacted Purple Heart Veterans Day, which is incredible. Again, how many times have we seen presidents in the last 30, 40 years talk about veterans with Purple Hearts? Oh, that's right. They're usually used as a campaign punchline when discussing the VA. That's it. The idea that you're going to somehow bring around the idea for the 843rd time, oh, Trump is secretly a white supremacist out here. He's gonna get us. Here we go. Oh my gosh. Does it get exhausting? Does it get exhausting? They're so disconnected from reality. They're trotting out Tim McBride, the dude in a skirt. Tim McBride, or who goes by Sarah these days. Their little token trans member that they've brought to the Congress, who has decided to be the spokesperson for saying Republicans, the reason they're unpopular is because they're really weird and bizarre. I'll say that one more time. The man in a dress is trying to tell the rest of the country that it is Republicans who are weird and bizarre. Check it out.
We will not take a lecture on decorum from a party that incited an insurrection. I appear to live rent-free in the minds of some of my Republican colleagues. I wish that they would spend even a fraction of the time that they spend thinking about me, thinking about how to lower the costs for American families. I wish they would spend a fraction of the time that they spend thinking about me, figuring out how to make government actually work better, rather than making it work worse in order to prove that government can't work.
Okay, so first of all, we're going to get to the conspiracy theory there in a second. The Democrat Party is trying to tell each and every one of you that they have the policies to lower the cost of living. They have the policy. Again, they who vote against every tax cut in existence. They who increase regulation. Ezra Klein, who is on the left, argues constantly the Democrats' biggest flaw is pushing regulation that will not let people whose homes have burnt down in Maui and California rebuild. That same crew is telling you, oh, Republicans are trying to make government work worse so that government is unpopular. Now that's a theory. That's a theory. Now, I will say this. As playing a woman, the whining that someone is thinking too much about me is rather on point as an impression. So, I mean, you know, Tim McBride's woman impression here, I got to say, not bad. You know, it's just they're just thinking about me all the time, and it's not what they did, it's how they said it. I'm sorry, radio crew. I'm going to have to send you to commercial if producer Allison doesn't cut me off in advance. It's the Tony Kinnett cast. Oh, I'm going to get anthrax in the mail. All right, we're going to move along here. Tim has more brilliant feminine words of wisdom.
They are obsessed with culture war issues. The Republican Party...
Obsessed with culture war issues, says the man who threw a fit not being able to use the women's restroom in the U.S. Capitol building.
Party is obsessed with culture war issues. It is weird and it is bizarre.
Ah, yes. The man with a bulge in his skirt is telling me that the Republicans are weird and bizarre. Yes, that's effective. That's effective. Nancy Pelosi yesterday saying that what we need is a national transgender care movement. Zoran Mamdani's aide saying they're going to make New York City a transgender Supreme Court. Again, remember just after the election, you had people like Gavin Newsom who were like, yeah, maybe we need to relax a little bit on this, a little bit, kind of, maybe sort of. And here we are, just going doubling, tripling, quadrupling, quintupling down. Why? Because they're just not even connected to reality at this point. As I've said before, rings true once more. There are two political parties in this country. There is the populist wing of the Republican Party that is one half of the coalition, and they are arguing with the more corporatist kind of establishment Republicans who are more hawkish on the fiscal side of things. And you have some libertarians on the right and some traditional conservatives in the middle betwixt those two political parties. The Democrats are not a serious political party. The governor of Massachusetts, of whom there are no Republican districts in the entire state, the governor of Massachusetts has threatened to redistrict the state if Texas doesn't stop it. I will say again, the all-blue state is threatening to redistrict its House seats. Oh man, I tell you what, you better stop throwing water on me or else I'm going to get out the water balloons. All right, thank you. Just super good job. The FBI also. The media on the FBI side, the Democrats, they're losing it once more again. They're very, very sad because the Trump administration is swinging through to fire a number of individuals in the FBI who were directly involved with the Obamagate, Russiagate situation. Essentially, they're arresting people inside the FBI who coordinated with the Hillary Clinton campaign to push false information and participate in the direct obstruction of justice. And Ken Delanian, who was so untrustworthy that they called him Fusion Ken because he suckled so greedily at anything from Fusion GPS. He says that the FBI's morale is like really low right now, guys. It's like in the basement. NBC, here you go.
This dismissal was actually part of a wave of firings of senior officials, including Steve Jensen, the head of the Washington field office, who was heavily involved in investigating the January 6th cases, and a man named Walter Giardina, who was involved in the investigation of Peter Navarro, that Trump advisor who went to prison for defying Congress. Giardina had just lost his wife to cancer a couple of weeks ago, and he was summarily fired. And this is a part of an ongoing purge that the Trump administration is conducting of FBI leadership. I posted a story earlier this week that noted that a large chunk of the special agents in charge across the country at field offices have been forced out of their jobs, and that those firings were disproportionately impacting women and minorities in those jobs. In this case, it's some senior white guys.
It's racist and sexist.
Some pretty famous folks inside the Bureau. Brian Driscoll became something of a folk hero, as you mentioned, when he was named the acting director, accidentally, by the way. His name was put in the wrong place in a chart. And then he stood up to a plan by the Trump administration that seemed like it was poised to fire.
I love it. The whining, the mewling, the complaining, it never ends. We got to bring the radio crew back. Don't go anywhere. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast.
It's the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Feels like I'm losing it.
The culture in the media is just getting worse as well. Now, I really do want to bring this up right before I head off to the Middle East for a week, because American media is kind of a unique thing, especially in how they view relationships between men and women. This is the crew that has nowhere to go right now. The media, the legacy crew, is in such complete, just destructive, essentially at this point, they're on suicide watch. Colbert canceled in 9 months to go. Howard Stern canceled. There are rumors swirling around that have not yet been confirmed, by the way, that The View might also be getting axed sometime. Rosie O'Donnell was apparently saying The View is about to be canceled because ABC is going to bend the knee to Trump or whatever. And the real reason that the media has gone down so sharply is because they are so bad at reading the American people, and they've got nothing to offer new from the New York Times and the Washington Post. This is from a guy named Shadi Hamid. He's a columnist at the Washington Post. And he decided that this was the day, that today, August 8th, it is time to say something that all Americans have truly been feeling. Again, remember, just put in the back of your mind, how different groups in the country moved, either to the right or to the left. Think about men. Well, what direction did men move? Did Tim Walz, who, wore the camo hat with the orange on it, remember the guy who couldn't load a shotgun? Remember Command Sergeant Stolen Valor Man, Tim Walz? Remember he was supposed to reach a bunch of young men, and then that didn't happen? And then they brought out, I don't know her name, Juliana Slagathor, the wildebeest, whatever her name is. They paid her like $20 million to go out and reach young men. Incredible moves here. Well, now Shadi Hamid from the Washington Post, and citing some New York Times stuff, says, men are disappointing. I've heard it from so many of my female friends that I've lost count. The problem with men is getting worse. Or at least that's what a series of viral essays in the New York Times seems to suggest. He then proceeds to discuss that men are bad because they don't know what they want. Or they know what they want, but they seem helpless to act on that knowledge. They're nervous about relationships. And so the easier option is to dabble and deflect. So right up front here, I will remind you, the reason that there are not men that are going out and essentially sticking the arm and going, hey, babe, you come here often. The reason that men are not approaching women and seeking relationships right now is because women have been calling rape and sexual assault for the last 5 to 10 years anytime a guy so much as speaks to them. Guy goes, says, hey, how's it going? I have a boyfriend. I remind you of the series of videos that have shown up on social media of women trying to work out at the gym. That's all they're trying to do. And a guy will come up and say, hey, by the way, you didn't put the pin in the weight there. And so when you pull up, that thing's going to snap back and hit you in the face. I have a boyfriend. Wow. Can a woman just not work out in the gym without all these men? All of the rage over toxic masculinity and man spreading. All of the outrage from your local barista over the oppressive authoritarianism of men. And a lot of guys just don't want to put up with that. And so they're, again, the act of going out and dating, as was popular in the 90s and the early aughts, has gone down. A lot of guys are also being a lot more selective, and they are staying together with women for longer. The divorce rate in this country among younger generations of men has plummeted. It's plummeting. Gone down by like 15% between millennials and Generation Z now into their marriage. Whereas Generation X is counting the number of marriages they're on. Millennials are not rushing from first to second marriage, much at all. And then Generation X behind them, the divorce rate so far into early adulthood is really, really low. So what does he suggest here? Well, for a few years now, reaching a peak after COVID, women have been underscoring the perils and disappointments of finding a good man, leaving some to exit the dating game altogether. It leads to an imbalance in the dating discourse. So here's the best part. He says, dating apps, meanwhile, create the illusion of unlimited choice, but it's just that, an illusion. Essentially, what the point that Shadi is trying to make here is that there are not enough men on dating apps. And so women are allowed to be there are a lot of guys on dating apps. And women are really picky with the guys on the dating apps. Men are just, swiping right altogether. And so he says it creates a cultural imbalance of misogyny. The complaining about just absolutely nothing, just men for existing. Now, does he actually get to a point that's worthwhile near the end of this? No, not at all. He says instead, young men today seem less resilient, complaining on podcasts and Reddit about the so-called 80-20 rule, according to which 80% of women allegedly only go for the top 20% of guys. He starts lecturing that women are more than happy to choose a guy based on a height preference, but if a guy lists, for example, a weight preference and they freak out, and he says, well, this is a problem. How could men complain about the current situation? Nick?
May I counter with the number one app in lifestyle in the Apple Store is a dating app for women that is based around red flagging men.
You're right. There was an entire app of ladies. I'm sorry. I got to ask Allison about this. Producer Allison, are you out there in wide WIBC Radio land? You are the voice of wisdom whenever it comes to this kind of nonsense.
I don't know about that, but go on.
Did you hear about this T app that was released? You know what I'm talking about, the T app? There was this app where I guess that ladies would go on dates, and then afterwards, if there were red flags, they would post the picture of the guy and start saying how awful he was. And it was like this app exclusive. Have you heard about this?
I've heard about something similar. There's also a Facebook group where women post if they're dating the same man. So along the similar lines, but I have not participated, but I would take a peek.
I mean, the tea from the leaks that we saw on social media were wild. And so then, good. By the way, the individuals who were complaining on this social media app, they were leaked by people in groups like 4chan, for example, on that platform, started leaking out the pictures of these individuals to the rest of the world and saying, hey, these are the ladies that are talking about all these guys for red flags like his mom was a contact in his phone. That was a major red flag, apparently. Or
how dare he?
Get this, that he said she looked nice this evening at the beginning of the date.
That's just insulting.
You look nice this evening. I know, terrible. I mean, usually, if a date doesn't start with spitting at each other and smacking each other with newspapers, then it's just a trip to the vet, come on. So I really do enjoy the efforts that are being made here. Again, we talked about this before, just being friends with individuals and then that leading to dating and having a really good time with relationships. It's really weird to see how much of an anathema that is to certain crews out there. It befuddles me. It does consistently. All right, now on to the next story here because it's only going to get worse from here. Now, Sydney Sweeney, who was in the news for, as I think we talked about quite a bit, with the American Eagle situation, all of those ads. Now the Los Angeles Times and the Washington Post and different lib journos out there in the ether are trying to suggest that the Sydney Sweeney outrage never even happened at all. It was all created by Chaya Reischik and Charlie Kirk. So I'm amazed by that. It just didn't even happen. Again, remember the memory holding that has occurred from the legacy media about things that, originally when they memory hold things, like, for example, scandals during the Obama administration, right? During the first Trump term, we heard this constant refrain that Obama never had any scandals except what? He had a tan suit, right? Obama never had any scandals. Forget, the Fast and Furious and the gun running to the cartels and drone striking weddings and, Eric Holder being his wingman and prosecuting Christian families and businesses with the IRS. I mean, come on. But, it was just a tan suit. That's the only problem, So now the media so desperate to memory hole anything they can because all of their fact-checking services are bankrupt. They're just straight up trying to memory hole things a week after they happen. And at a time when Americans' memory has gotten better because it's become easier to bookmark videos and clips which are shared. And there are one of my proudest achievements, I will say, that I played a part of when I got into this game after I was fired from Indianapolis Public Schools in 2021. And I argued very passionately that what we really needed at this point in time was a group of people on the right side of the aisle who maintained databases of when the left made claims, when they freaked out about things, when they fact-checked something, when policies were put in place, so that when you were in the face of the person trying to memory hole things, a couple of months, couple of years later, you could say, wait a minute, what about this? And they lose their minds over it. So, great case and example. Here's Matthew Sheffield. He's the host of Theory for Change, which I've never heard of. He's been apparently seen in Vanity Fair, Washington Post, Daily Beast, whatever. He is now trying to claim, again, 1 week after the Sydney Sweeney shenanigans, right-wing extremists like libs of TikTok and Charlie Kirk totally concocted the Sydney Sweeney outrage. Just made it up. The outrage wasn't even a thing. The supposed left-wing outrage at Sydney Sweeney never happened. Republicans, they made it up, and Republicans have been inventing people to rage against for decades. Producer Nick.
They caught me. I was dressing up as all those women and complaining about Sydney Sweeney and how pretty she was.
Which, dude, you look horrible when cross-dressing. So, that's a crime against humanity. Producer Allison, send the radio crew over to commercial. We'll be back in a second. We're going to go through some of these examples on the live stream. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. Didn't even happen. By the way, the article that he is quoting, I believe this is from the New York Times. He says, the article says, in reality, most progressives weren't worked up that much at all at the Sydney Sweeney thing. They weren't even worked up. Just totally not. Again, the idea that Republicans are saying the left was accusing Sydney Sweeney of eugenics and white supremacy, man, it sure would be weird if there was a video of someone saying they couldn't go in American Eagle because they were black, and then that video going viral on social media platforms.
Hey, you want to go to American Eagle?
Oh, I can't go in there because I'm black.
Oh, okay. Well, all right. Bad example. Maybe it was just like small people here and there. There weren't any like major celebrities or people from Hollywood or whatever suggesting that this was, some kind of a big cultural moment. Like, let's say Doja Cat, the again, singer of the song Say So. She wouldn't freak out like that. Would she?
Genes are passed down from parents to offspring, often determining traits like hair color, personality, and even eye color. My genes are blue.
Huh. By the way, she was memed to hell and back for that, and rightly so. The memes were not very flattering. So maybe some celebrities were freaking out about it. It's not like Lizzo, in her latest single, name-dropped Sydney Sweeney and griped about the advertisement in the... Ah, crap, Lizzo did that too. Well, okay. Certainly there's not like a bunch of videos of people freaking out or anything.
That got me too. And I don't know why. Maybe. Should we be surprised that a company whose name is literally American Eagle is making fascist propaganda like this?
If anyone from American Eagle who was involved in the creation of Sydney Sweeney's most recent advertisement booked into my Pilates class, I would give them the hardest exercise class that I was capable of doing on the lightest...
Okay. Oh, no, not ABC Good Morning America.
Backlash over a new ad campaign featuring actress Sydney Sweeney.
Yeah, the ads are for American Eagle, and the tagline is, Sydney Sweeney has great genes. Now, in one ad, the blonde-haired, blue-eyed actress talks...
Okay, all right. So maybe there's a little bit of outrage, but clearly the issue is that... Ken, by the way, the tell in this story before we even began, whenever you see libs of TikTok being blamed for something, Chaya Reichik, the reason is because her account is a database of individuals, libs, often from TikTok, connections, who post essentially, this is what the left is freaking out about right now. There are a lot of individuals who do so. They post these clips. And I download these clips. Because as a former science teacher, I'm all about the receipts and citing your sources. And then I play them for you. And those episodes, they stay online. And those links stay in our show notes. So we have them. One of the reasons that producer Nick and I installed a network attached storage system in the studio was so we could keep all of these forever so that they can't be memory hold. Now, what are some of the other brilliant, because this guy went on forever about this. He says the actual numbers show that almost no one was criticizing American Eagle. Nobody at all. It's just a tactic called nut picking, which is freaking weird.
No.
We got to bring the radio crew in. We'll be back. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast.
It's the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
So, welcome back, radio crew. I have to tell you, the phenomenon of the left calls, reporting on the left, saying really crazy stuff. Used to, Politico just called it Republicans pounce, and they called it a day. But we need new terms like woman keeping and mansplaining and all of this other nonsense. They have... I will read the tweet verbatim. Sorry, he says, the tactic, often called nut picking, like nitpicking, but nut picking, I guess meaning like you're picking out all of the nuts and saying these are representative of the group. Which, by the way, isn't that what the Sydney Sweeney thing was? It was saying, here is a lady talking about her genes. She mentioned genetics. It must be eugenics. The entire party that came up with like the dog whistle thing, oh, he's dog whistling to white supremacists because he made a okay symbol with his hand. See, that's okay. But now they're going to accuse nut picking. Again, horrible phrasing. Please don't pick your nuts in public. Very gross, not sanitary. Please don't. Oh no. I don't know if I can read this super chat. Jeff D, of course it's a Marine, USMC. Nut picking better than I can't say
you
that.
Cannot finish that.
Like Sarah McBride. Oh no. Anywho. So he says, I finally got Matthew Sheffield says, I love this film, it's so great. I finally got tired of nut picking once I realized that there are plenty of idiots across the political spectrum, But when I looked closer, I realized that Dems ignored their dummies. Republicans voted them into highest offices. Yes, of course, I knew it. Certainly the Democrats don't ever elect any nuts to office. That would just be like the craziest thing.
Would it be nutty?
One could imagine. I mean, can you imagine if they elected like someone like
I do have one yes or no question for Mr. Hamilton. I know you're involved in DEI cases, but has any court opined that DEI is unconstitutional? Yes or no?
Yes.
Which court?
The United States Supreme Court.
I disagree with you because you're talking about the Harvard case.
Okay.
You can go read it yourself.
And if
All right, so that's just one really bad example. I mean, it's not like there are any other nuts that are even nuttier that they've, sent to Congress.
Since we're talking about integrity, I'm confused as to why my Republican colleagues aren't talking about the lack of integrity when it comes to the president's family's visas. Let me remind y'all that Melania, the First Lady, a model, and when I say model, I'm not talking about Tyra Banks, Cindy Crawford, or Naomi Campbell level, applied for.
Okay, but accusing the First Lady of being a whore. I mean, come on now. I mean, that's just nutty, but it's not like they're elected to Congress. Oh, crap. Okay, so backing up just a little bit here, folks. It may be really embarrassing. It may be, in fact, humiliating. And it really is to watch the left try to go down this and suggest, by the way, he gets worse. He says Republicans pretend to care about free speech and letting people tell a joke because Republicans didn't freak out about the South Park stuff. They were supposed to, apparently. They were supposed to get really mad. And instead, J.D. Vance and Charlie Kirk thought it was freaking hilarious. The only person who was mildly offended was Kristi Noem for all of about 3 seconds until ICE started using the actual South Park clips to advertise joining ICE. Oh man, Republicans just allowed themselves to be laughed at? Oh no. So he essentially says, then Trump literally uses government power to censor comedians. Ah yes, nothing says government-ordered censorship like, you're fired 8 months from now. What? How would... No. And again, a simple history book would show you that censorship usually does not involve letting you do more of the same. When Andy Dufresne in Shawshank Redemption was playing Ave Maria for the entire prison courtyard, the warden was not like, Andy, you stop playing that in 8 months now, you hear? He didn't know. They broke the window, opened the door, beat the crap out of him, and threw him into a cell because that's what censorship actually is. It's not you're fired in 8 months and then you're going to go launch a podcast that's going to suck like every other washed up leftist Democrat media hoober that ends up launching a podcast. Incredible. And of course, there goes to Colbert's show was #1 in its entire category. Yeah, #1 in losing money. Colbert's show was not #1 in its category. It was not. Greg Gutfeld, the late night host for Fox News, beats the ever-loving tar out of every other late night show combined on networks. Why? Because Greg Gutfeld is talented. You know, the first time that people actually watched Jimmy Fallon in the last year and a half was when Gutfeld was on his show last night. And you know what? He was funny. Crazy concept. And now you've got, John Oliver saying that he's not going to take advice from Jay Leno. Is like, hey man, maybe you should just, try being funny. Just a little bit. Just try being a little funny. John Oliver's like, no, actually, I'm going to be even worse, and I'm going to smell like piss. Great strategy. I love it. Why are they just falling apart? I can't fathom. Now, the right is not without sin, but we have our own sins at the moment. Mainly, they come with large influencer accounts. There are right-wing influencer accounts to complain about. There are. Now, this next piece is a little more terminally online. If you get your news from social media, you might have noticed that occasionally an account posts something as though it's brand new, incredible, insane information. So there were right-wing accounts on X this afternoon and yesterday saying that Baskin-Robbins had just released a huge new Sydney Sweeney ad. Oh man, you guys need to come in and give me lots of clips on the video because, oh man, Sydney Sweeney's doing a Baskin-Robbins ad now. And again, it's really kind of a weird ad, but I mean, it's okay. It's an ad. It's Sydney Sweeney seductively almost tasting an ice cream cone. biting the waffle cone, standing in confetti, and then there's just two employees watching her. All right, it's an ad. They're like, aha, liberals are triggered and brand new ad just dropped. Only it hasn't just dropped. It hasn't. It's lying for engagement. That ad is from June. In June what?
The
Producer
26th.
Nick? The 26th. Thank you. Appreciate it. Guys, it's not new. I'm all for getting out there and slam dunking the ball. Nobody enjoys it more than I do. College basketball runs in my blood. Watching a team with a really cocky attitude get dunked on, that is my favorite kind of sporting event. Next to the kind where green toys are thrown onto the court. But anywho.
The latest one wasn't green.
Was it not? Oh, we're diversifying in the color
colors
of...
are diversifying now.
Oh, we might get a little bit of that in bonus tonus, just a smidgen there. I will say this as we let the radio crew head off to the fine weekend. Guys, you don't just have to engagement farm. You don't. You don't have to. And some of these large-scale accounts that are just posting content for engagement, they are also, like the legacy media, a passing fad. Because people enjoy content. They enjoy substance. They like being given pieces of content that are new and interesting and trustworthy. Because the first time you're caught lying, you're done. We'll see you Monday. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. All right. Time for a little bit of bonus tonus. We're going to talk a smidgen about AI because ChatGPT came out with ChatGPT 5. Now, seriously, correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't they just come out with ChatGPT 4 like less than a year ago? Like ChatGPT 4 was not that long ago. They had at least an optimized version of ChatGPT that came out. And then there's Grok 4 over on X. Google and Meta have their AI whatevers. If you listen to the Ben Shapiro show, Perplexity is a very big AI program that also promotes a lot of shows. By the way, Perplexity, you want to promote comment on this show, you give us a ring. I will not cut out my show writing for it. But hey, I tell you what, we'll air it. We'll talk about it. Give us an email. As far as AI programs go, though, there's a lot of bragging and shenanigans about the ChatGPT 5 model and such. They released this new feature where the AI reviews your answer, or excuse me, it reviews your question before it answers it, because AI up until this point has essentially just tried to guess what it is that you'd like to hear. Like predictive text, it's a learning model. It's read a lot of human responses, a lot of human questions out there in the wide beyond. And now AI is trying to feed that back to you. Well, now there's like a secondary review process. And Nate Silver has noted that although there's a ton of money dumping into it in the economy, producer Daniel, thank you. 4 was released on, producer Nick says, ChatGPT 4 was released March 14th of 2023. So a little bit longer than in the last year.
The latest version of 4 was released April 9th of 24.
April 9th of 24, and then May 13th of 24. So, okay, thank you for the updates on that. So, as far as the whole Chat GPT AI boom is currently trying to really impress the United States and the world at large, ton of money flowing into it as quickly as it can. I'm going to be honest with you. I just don't see AI becoming that much more impressive than it is right now. And the last time that we did a little AI segment on the show, I said AI is not about to get any brand new skills. And I was told that I was wrong and that I was dumb, and that AI was about to become this like little person that was incredible and was like sentience in a can or in a power-hungry, water-hungry server room in Ohio. No. It is using more power and more resources, but essentially we are getting right about to the end of what AI can do as far as brand new behaviors. And this is what's really going to ruffle some feathers in the economy. This probably will not look good for the eventual eternity. AI is not, in fact, sentient. It will never be sentient. It can mimic sentience. It can mimic things that have already been created, but it cannot create brand new stuff that has never been imagined before. It cannot actually synthesize brand new content. It can create music based on patterns that it's seen before. It can create art based on patterns that it's seen before. It can give you answers based on things that it looks up and what it guesses that you want to hear. The closest that AI is ever really going to get to being our picture of artificial intelligence is Jarvis from 2007's Iron Man. That's it. where it can answer questions and maybe pretend to be personable based on a caricature. And with a wide enough memory bank, it can kind of fool you at times if you suspend disbelief, but it's not going to be intuitive. It's not going to surprise you with brand new creativity and analysis that can only come from a created being. Now, I have a real reason, the actual reason that we're never going to reach there. The practical reason, though, is it's not physically feasible. So one of the laws of physics is that everything tends towards entropy. You cannot throw together genetic code and accidentally get brand new, structured, impressive, new genetic information that is added. It either replaces something that was already there, or it suffers degradation, substitution, things fall apart. There's, again, an entire system in the laws of physics and the laws of biology that creating something kind of ex nihilo is not a thing. Now, the real reason, by the way, of all of this is that man is created in the image of God. Mankind is. Nothing else is. There is no feasible way for humanity to artificially create life. We can kind of like put the building blocks to life next to each other and ram it together in a test tube. But that's still the procedures that were already there. You're just changing the room and the wallpaper. Instead of a womb, it's a room. So in this particular instance, what does that mean for AI in the future? It's just going to get better at doing what it's currently doing. AI is never going to get to a point where it can develop incredibly brilliant, amazing skills that are not currently in the category. And this is what's really going to hurt American industry and technology eventually on down the line. It's not really going to be able to 100% replace the American worker so that we can get to Andrew Yang's weird universal income idea. I think Elon Musk believes that we might be able to get close to this. He's just wrong. Now, again, brilliant man, and I am all for incredible feats of engineering. I do not believe that this is humanity's future. It's just like Microsoft Office. It is. I've said it before. And this new version of ChatGPT 5, it does stuff that it did previously a little bit better. But essentially, the graph is starting to kind of flatline. We're starting to reach diminishing returns on what it can really pull forward for the user. And I mean, I would really love to hear if you guys think that there is something that AI is going to be able to do someday. But I will say this, and by the way, I do want to make this really clear. The idea that AI is someday going to gain sentience and evil and take over us all, no. It's just not. Because again, creativity. AI can mimic things, it can reproduce things, and it can analyze and summarize. But the creation of new material for anything that is not human is impossible. That's just a fact of technological scope, reason, understanding. It is a necessary truth in things like theology, in psychology, in sociology. Every facet in human understanding of the universe around us shows that, guys, that, again, AI might get a little bit better at what it's doing. And again, that little bit better, there's a lot of room there. Again, I do think that AI will someday be able to reach essentially being Jarvis from the first Iron Man. Kind of a robot butler that answers your questions, keeps your calendar, whatever, keeps an eye on things that it knows it's recognized that you're interested in. It guesses maybe where you're going and then rationalizes what's the most likely outcome and makes those suggestions to you. But the idea that it's going to come up with brand new, incredible ideas, nah, don't think so. So, all of those things said, I really do. I will encourage y'all to have a wonderful evening, a wonderful weekend. We will be back on Monday, yours truly, from Israel. I'm headed to Israel for the entire week. We're looking forward to it. I'm heading with the Newsmax delegation. So I don't necessarily know what to promise you. As far as some of the interviews, the schedule is very fluid at the moment. A lot of things moving, a lot of stuff going on. But we'll get to that. We'll get that to you guys as soon as we can. Hopefully, live every evening at 7 here on the YouTube, Rumble, and X live streams. And then, of course, the podcast afterward, along with our syndication partners. That said, have a wonderful weekend. This is the Daily Signal's Tony Kinnett cast, syndicated nationally first on 93 WIBC. Take care.